This is a video response based on the video above. One of my students were going through and they said they had a question. So I found myself with some extra time. So I have decided to do a video on question 2. And in the video above, this is question 2. Okay. Just to explain a little bit more. Okay. Now, good. Here we have a quadratic, and we are asked to add the term to this quadratic to make it a perfect square. Now let's look at the general form of a quadratic. A general form of a quadratic is ax squared. My bad. That's terrible. Okay, let me just get rid of that. Okay, guys. Now the general form of a quadratic is a x squared plus bx plus c. That's a general form. Now if we should make some comparisons here, we would have gotten the term in x squared, and let me just change my color. Our term in x squared would be k squared. Okay, so I'm just substituting. Okay, so I would have k squared. However, my coefficient a would be 1. What you have noticed, I have a plus b here. So I'm going to put my plus, but bx is missing. I don't have a term in x. So here I wouldn't have a term in k. So let me change the color. So I would have k, the term in k is missing. So I need to find the coefficient of k, because I know that in a quadratic I have a x square, and then I have a x, and then I have a constant. However, my b is missing, so I'm just going to label it by saying b, and then I'm going to put my k. Okay, and I would just love you to make that comparison, that as my x decrease in power, I have x to the 2, then x to the 1, then no x here. I have k to the 2, then k to the 1. However, in this case, I don't have my b. Okay, and if you notice, I would have my constant, which is a plus 16. Okay, guys, so I have my constant here, which is plus 16. Now, what I'm asked to find in this quadratic, I am asked to find the middle term. Okay, because if you should make the comparison between the general form of a quadratic and what was given here, okay, then you would have seen that the middle term is missing, because I would have my constant c, and then I would have my first term in x squared. Okay, now since they have asked us to add a term to the expression to make it a perfect square, then I know I'm just going to go back to basics, right? I know that for a quadratic to be a perfect square, then a half of b all squared, okay, must be equal to a times c. Now all I'm going to do here is just to substitute the values of what was given. I was given my a. A is the coefficient of the term in x squared. But since I had removed my x squared and I put k squared, now if you notice carefully, the coefficient of k is 1. Okay, so I could just quickly substitute. They're asking me for b. However, if you notice, I wasn't given the middle term. I was just given the first term and the last term. So here my b is missing. Cool. So I'm going to say I need a half of b all squared. And that must be equal to, I was given a is 1 times c, and c is 16. Cool. So I have 1 and 16. So all I'm doing from here in is to just solve for b rather. Cool. Now let me change my color. I know that this would be a half of b all squared, and that is equal to 1 times 16 is 16. Now if you notice, this side is squared, so I need to get rid of the square because I need my b. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So let me take the square root, because the opposite of square is square root, and we learned from earlier lessons that when transposing, what we do to one side we must do to the next. So we know that that square root will cancel that square root, so I'm left with a half of b, and that is equal to 16. The square root of 16 is 4, and really it's a plus or minus 4, okay, because what you're saying, you could square positive 4, you'd get back 16, and if you square negative 4, you also get back 16. Okay guys, nothing to worry about. However, let's just use the positive root of 16, which is 4. So all I'm saying is here now is that I have a half of b. A half is multiplying b, so I need to divide through by a half. Okay, so I'm going to divide through by a half. What I do to one side, I do to the next. Okay, so now this half will cancel that half, and then this half here, I have b. Let me just rewrite this so that we can understand fully what we're talking about. Okay, let me just scroll up a bit. Let me just scroll up a bit right there. Now, what I'm saying, let me just rewrite this to show you what I'm talking about. What this is saying essentially is that 4 divided by a half is the same as 4 divided by 1 over 2. This is a fraction, okay? And all I did was just to rewrite this differently. Now we know that when we're dividing by fractions, it is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So really, b is just equal to, when we're multiplying by the reciprocal of a fraction, we are just going to write back what's in front here, and then I'm going to change my division sign to multiplication, and I'm going to flip this one at the back, so I'll have 2 over 1. Okay, so I say b now must be equal to 4 times 2 is 8. Cool. Now 8, that's my answer. That's the value of b. Now when I come back here now in the original, I need to now put in this middle term. Now since I've found the coefficient of k, which is b, okay, I can rewrite this term now by simply saying, I'm just rewriting this by adding the middle term that was missing, and I can say now that I have a k square plus, I found my b is 8. Let me change the color, so I'm going to say 8, and then I would have a k there, okay, 8k, and I've already had my 16 plus 16, and that's my answer. Now we could just check to see if this is correct, okay, by this general rule here. We could just check it now to ensure that we did the right thing by looking at this general rule. And what the general rule said to us is that a half, if it's a perfect square, a half of b all squared must be equal to a times c. And let me just make a note here that this is we're just checking here. Okay, so we're just checking. This is a check. You're not required to do this, but just to help you understand the problem a little bit more. Okay, now we're just taking a half of 8. We know what a half of b, we know that what b is, we found it. Okay, so I'm taking a half of 8 and I'm squaring that, and that must be equal to a times c, and a is 1 and c is 16. That's my c, okay, times 16, and these two, both sides of the equation must work out to be the same value. So a half of 8 is 4, and I'm going to square that, okay, and that must be equal to 1 times 16 is 16. And if you look, 4 square, 4 times 4 is 16, and that is equal to 16. So we have checked, and we now realize that this is correct. Okay, so b is 8. Alright, so that's it. If you have any comments, you can feel free to post them, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Okay, remember now you can always subscribe to the channel so that you can get the latest updates on our videos. Okay guys, bye bye.